On June the 1st, 1812, I addressed the Congress. Britain is impressing our sailors, not because of any law of nations against an enemy, but because of what she feels is her prerogative over her British subjects. Our citizens are forced to risk their lives in Great Britain's battles. Britain had attacked ships in our own harbors and spilled blood in our own territory. Our shipping industry is destroyed, and Britain's only reason is to gain a monopoly on the high seas. She has again incited the savages in our west to attack our citizens, a warfare distinguished by actions shocking to humanity. The only conclusion is that Great Britain is already in a state of war with the United States. The question now is, shall we remain passive, or shall we use force to defend our rights and commit a just cause into the hands of the almighty disposer of events? This question our Constitution leaves to the legislative branch, and I am sure their decision will be worthy of the patriotic counsels of a virtuous, a free, and powerful nation.
On June 4th, 1812, the House voted 79 to 49 to declare war. June 17th, the Senate approved 19 to 13. June 23rd, Great Britain suspended the orders of council. But there was no turning back. Many of the war hawks in Congress saw this as a means to easily conquer Canada, but they were wrong. As in August, General William Hull ignominiously surrendered Detroit to the British without firing a shot. Plus, the President's call for militia from the New England area was falling on deaf ears, as several New England states simply refused to respond. The war was not popular in that part of the country. The Connecticut Current wrote, "The war was commenced in folly. It is proposed to be carried on with madness and will end in ruin." It was under this cloud in November of 1812 that James, with his new Vice President Elbridge Gerry of Massachusetts, defeated peace candidate DeWitt Clinton 128 to 89 in electoral votes. Madison Gerry only won a single New England state, Vermont, but carried Pennsylvania and all of the South and the West.
In Mr. Madison's War, one of our rare land victories was guided by General William Henry Harrison, who recaptured Detroit in October of 1813 and came to Washington to report to me. I then ordered him immediately to return to his post. But hours later, I heard that the general was to be in attendance at a party that my wife was sponsoring. Well, my beloved General Harrison should be 30 or 40 miles west by now.
But, my darling, I laid my command on him, and he is too gallant a man to disobey me.
Well, we shall soon see whose orders he will obey. That night, General Harrison danced at Dolley's party. Fortunately, our Navy was enjoying unexpected victories over the Royal Navy. Our victories at sea came about because England was also at war with France, and her Navy was utilized in that direction. But once England made a truce with France, she turned her magnificent Navy towards the United States, initiated a naval blockade of the entire East Coast, and sent a crack regiment of 4,000 troops to sail up the Chesapeake Bay. They planned to capture the capital, and as British Admiral Cockburn had asserted, take Dolley hostage and parade her through the streets of London. But by May of 1813, they had already burned Havre de Grace, Maryland. And it was that same year that my assistant, Ned Coles, became ill. Dolley assumed his duties. Then in early summer, I became deathly sick, and Dolley, in a sense, assumed responsibility for the administration of the executive branch of our government.
My primary concern was for James's health. I still am not at liberty to say what I did or did not do during this time. But when a hostile Senate committee insisted on seeing the President, who had been virtually quarantined for weeks, I tersely replied, "James Madison is sorry that a continuance of his ill health will not permit him to see the committee of the Senate today." The situation was very terrifying. The French ambassador wrote his government, "Madison's death, in the circumstances in which the Republic is placed, would be a veritable calamity. Vice President Gerry is a respectable old man, but weak and worn out. All good Americans pray for the recovery of Mr. Madison.
Well, except maybe New England politicians, one of whom stated, "The old president will soon appear at the bar of immortal justice to pay for the bloody crime of having tricked the country into war with England." I did have one strong supporter in that area of the country, ex-President John Adams, who commented, "A more necessary war was never undertaken. It is necessary against England, necessary to convince France that we are something, and above all, necessary to convince ourselves that we are not nothing." I recovered from my illness thanks to Dolley's constant vigil. Oh, the Russian Tsar, Alexander I, offered to mediate peace and was sent 2 envoys. One was accompanied by Dolley's son, Payne, now 21 and fluent in French, the language of European diplomats. I also sent along a bank draft for $800 for Payne's expenses, and I gave our envoy permission to draw on my bank account for Payne if necessary.